And I would like to welcome you. I am Lisa Blunt Rochester, the Congresswoman from the great state of Delaware. Yes. And I am just thrilled and honored to be with you at this session, the ALC, Congressional Black Caucus's ALC conference. And I have one of my good friends, colleagues, mentor, and a leader in the field of education and workforce, who is the ranking member of the House Committee on Education and Workforce from the great state also of Virginia. Please welcome for some comments my ranking member, Bobby Scott.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for holding this hearing. This is a very important issue that people need to be cognizant of. I was one that said scary, because if you understand the issue, it's going to be scary, and no one understands these issues better than a former Secretary of Labor for the state of Delaware, than Lisa Blunt Rochester. She serves on the committee, does an excellent job. Some of her friends from Delaware asked me if I was leading her along. I said she doesn't need any leading along. She's coming knowing all the issues right off the bat. But this is one for the future of work, and nobody's really focused on it. When you start talking about driverless cars and drones and those kind of things, people are going to lose jobs. And Spencer's going to tell you who's going to lose those jobs, and you can imagine who's first in line. But the idea that you can show up at work at 9 o'clock in the morning, take orders, and at 5 o'clock in the afternoon go home and do what you're told during that period of time, those days are over. You've got to be innovative. You have to use technology. There are a lot of things you're going to have to do. And it's important that we understand how to be prepared for the jobs of the future. And there's one other little issue that's involved. Union density is drooping. People that think that the middle class wages that high school graduates were able to make going to the auto factory and these kinds of things, those middle class wages didn't happen by accident. They happened because union members are willing to go on strike and made the employers pay those wages. People in unions make about $200 a week more than those not in unions, and the union density is drooping. The majority is doing everything they can to sabotage unions, and so those middle class wages, the companies are going to pay whatever they want to pay. You're going to have people going in low bidding against somebody else to get the lowest wage so they can get the job. That, as well as automation, are two things that ought to make the future of work scary, and that's why that's what Lisa has noticed and is going to put people on notice, and we're going to figure out what we can do to prepare for it. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I again want to give a big round of applause for Bobby Scott, because Congressman Scott has taken the lead on some very tough issues. He speaks up, he speaks out, he does it with class and dignity and intelligence, and is so well respected, and so I want to give him some more props. As a matter of fact, recently there's a congressional spelling bee against the press, and everybody said, go to Bobby Scott, ask him to be in the spelling bee, because he's one of the smartest people here. And he said, I'm smart enough to know that if I go on that spelling bee, I might prove to people that I'm not as smart as so he is incredible, and we thank him for his leadership. Again, I am very pleased to be here, and I wanted to just give you a sense of why this panel was established. As Representative Scott said, I served as Secretary of Labor in Delaware, head of state personnel, and also CEO of the Urban League. And for me, it's always been about jobs. I mean, I even started as a coordinator for the Summer Youth Employment Program. And one of the things that I noticed is that we are in an age of disruption, and many people are experiencing it unaware, unconsciously. Everything from we don't go to the gas station and have a gas station attendant pump our gas anymore, unless you live in New Jersey or a few other states. You know, When you go to the bank, you go to an ATM, to a machine. You typically don't go to a teller. You know, right now, I order almost every day everything off of Amazon Prime. Those are jobs. Department stores are closing. All these retail, you see it happening, but we're unconscious of it. As a matter of fact, we have two women that are fighting for our attention, Alexa and Siri. We are unconscious of it, but it's happening to us, and it is affecting us, and it will affect us. And so I actually saw panels with some of the presenters who are here, like Dr. Maya Rockymore, who was talking about autonomous buses and trucks. Now, I had been thinking about the cars, but then I realized those are good-paying jobs that Black folks depend on. We drive trucks, we drive buses, we have all kinds of tech jobs, but many of us aren't aware of what's coming down the pike. So the purpose of this panel today is to focus on, again, the future of work, what's happening now, what's coming down the pike, but most importantly, what I said to all the panelists is, let's talk about how we can take advantage of it. What are the opportunities? That's what we're really here today to talk about, are solutions. So those are the three main things. Number one, what's happening so that our eyes are open. It's been a bunch of conversation about staying woke. Well, we gotta wake up before we can stay woke. So first is to understand what's happening. Second is for us to really think about what's coming. And then third is to think about how do we prepare? How do we leverage as small businesses, as individuals, as parents, as teachers? How do we leverage that as businesses? So that's really it in a nutshell. Again, I am so thankful to the panel, and what we're going to do is have them give some kind of a brief overview, a little bit about who they are, where they're from, but specifically about what's coming. What's coming for us? We're going to start there, and I'm going to start with Maya, because she actually is booked in 2 different rooms, so she's going to be jumping back and forth. So, and I wanted everyone to please pay attention to this great handout we have here, because not only does it have their name and their organization, but it has great photos of them. So with that, I'm going to start with Dr. Maya Rockymore.
Thank you, Congresswoman Blunt Rochester. I just want to say that she's relatively new to Congress, but she's already a leader on so many issues of importance. I'm friends with Governor Jack Markell, and he says that, you know, he speaks so highly of you, so much so that he recruited you to run for this seat and was putting all of his efforts and support behind you. And so we're all very proud of the work that you do. Congressman Bobby Scott, I thank you. You have been a champion and a supporter of the work that we have done at the Center for Global Policy Solutions for years, and I really appreciate collaborating with you. Congresswoman was not wrong when she says he's one of the smartest person, if not the smartest persons in the room. And so I have appreciated the partnership that we have had with you throughout the years and look forward to continuing that. My name is Maya Rockymore. I'm President and CEO of the Center for Global Policy Solutions. We are a think tank and action organization based here in Washington, D.C. We do work around the country. We focus on policy and research analysis, and research. We do programs across the country in the areas of health, education, economic security, technology, and civic success for vulnerable populations, and we focus at the intersection of race, class, gender, age, and place. So looking at the vulnerabilities of communities of color especially. So because we were curious, I mean, all of the data has been talking about, in the headlines on the news, have been talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, all of these, you know, seemingly new terms that seem exotic. And when you're talking about artificial intelligence, you know, we think about, you know, robots, you know, who are replacing humans perhaps, and certainly a world that is more Terminator-like than we have, you know, traditionally experienced. But this thing, that's sitting in all of your hands or in all of your pockets or purses, represents artificial intelligence, machine learning. We have become used to it. When you are on Netflix, and automatically at the top of the screen, when you click in, all of these films that are things that you would like pop up. That is a combination of artificial intelligence and machine learning, where it is learned, the computer, the mechanism, the digital aspect of this, the artificial intelligence has learned what your viewing behaviors are, and they automatically pre-populate your screen to basically to make sure that you're getting the kinds of movies that you have liked in the past. When you use your voice recognition on here, it's using the same technologies. Facial recognition is now coming into play. And because we were very curious about the impact that automation would have on particularly driving and automated vehicles in this country, we did a study a couple of months ago. It's called Stick Shift, Automated Vehicles and the Future of Work. And the general data shows that approximately 47% of all jobs are expected to experience, in America, are expected to experience some form of automation. Now, we know that because automated vehicles have been, at the forefront of the news, that this technology is actually not advancing, it is actually here. It's actually here. The companies are actually testing the technology as we speak. It is being deployed and tested in communities across the country. And right now there is a battle in Washington about how and whether these vehicles will be regulated on the streets of America. And the Trump administration, led by Elaine Chao over at the Department of Transportation, have been working with a collaboration of many of these companies and a couple of labor unions around how to roll out infrastructure that would support this kind of technology. So just so you know, all of these issues are already here. It's not fantasy, it's not the future, it is the now. So we did an assessment of how this technology would possibly impact workers. And what we found is that there are approximately 4.1 million professional driving jobs in this country. The predominant number of those driving jobs are trucking jobs. But we also looked at buses and delivery vehicles, and we looked at chauffeurs and taxi cab drivers, which also include the gig economy drivers like the Ubers and Lyfts. And so our assessment found that of those 4.1 million jobs, the vast majority of those drivers are actually white, and the vast majority of those drivers are actually men. However, when we took a deeper dive into the data, we found that African American, Latino, and Native American drivers especially are disproportionately reliant on these driving jobs. And when we took a deeper look, we found out why. African Americans, Latino, and Native American drivers have two vulnerabilities when it comes to these professional driving jobs. They actually earn more from these jobs than they would in non-driving jobs. And you might ask the question, why is that the case? 93% of our nation's professional drivers have less than a college education. But African Americans, Latino, and Native American drivers, because of their demographics and certainly because of their educational attainment level, actually experience greater pay from these driving jobs than they do from non-driving jobs. And they actually have a greater representation in these driving jobs than in non-driving jobs. So as a percentage of the workforce, African American, Latino, and Native American drivers have a greater representation in these driving jobs. That means that these drivers of color will be disproportionately at risk in the scenario of automated vehicles that are actually deployed at a rapid rate. So let me just say this. If there is a rapid transition to driverless vehicle technology. When I say that, we mean level 5 technology where there is absolutely no human driver required. And many people say that that is not the scenario that's likely to occur. So let me just say that. But we wanted to know what would happen if we experienced a rapid transition. We would actually be looking at 4.1 million jobs lost in this country, disproportionately affecting drivers of color. Now, let me say that there's also a geographical aspect to this. We looked at the data and we looked at it across states, and we found that there were certain states that would be disproportionately at risk. States like West Virginia, states like Indianapolis, states like Mississippi and Arkansas. These states are, most of them are red states who have already been hard hit in many cases by globalization. And so it suggests that, you know, workers in these states are vulnerable for the same two reasons that workers of color are vulnerable. Those in professional driving jobs in those states earn more from these jobs than they could from non-driving jobs, and they have an overrepresentation. These states have more of their working population in driving jobs than in non-driving jobs. So with that, let me just say this. Automated vehicles, you know, certainly bring their benefits. The notion of improved safety is very real. The notion of an improved impact on the environment is absolutely correct. The notion of convenience, I mean, how many of you, you know, I mean, I just think about, you know, we'll get rid of driving while black perhaps. If, you know, if we're not driving. If it's the car driving, then, you know, who's going to stop me and say that, you know, but anyway. And if you like to drink, you know, certainly you don't have to worry about driving if there are automated vehicles. There are a number of benefits that are going to come from this. But we also have to be very clear about the risks. And so with that, we have been seeking to educate policymakers on both the Senate and the House side about what these risks are to the population, especially to a population that has a high vulnerability in terms of a lack of higher education in terms of college degrees. What happens in a scenario if there is a rapid transition to this driverless vehicle technology when a certain segment of that population that's going to be affected can't transition to other work for whatever reason? Maybe they're already on the verge of retirement. Perhaps they're, you know, sick or, you know, not well and can't take on new jobs, or perhaps for whatever reason they're just not able to transition to other kinds of work. What happens? What is our society doing to make sure that the workers and the families of today and tomorrow don't slip through the cracks with no means to put food on their table and a roof over their head? We have to be thinking about what happens if automation is deployed in such a way, not only in driving jobs, but across industries, in such a way that undermines the abilities of the workforce, the human workforce, to make ends meet. And so because of that, the policy recommendations that we come up with in this paper include strengthening our social safety net, expanding and strengthening our social insurance system. And we also include policy recommendations like, of course, we're going to have an improved K through 12 post-secondary also education system, because currently, and this is what keeps me up at night regarding this issue, the pace and the sophistication at which this technology is being rolled out. And when I say technology, I mean automation generally, is being rolled out, not just in a single industry, but across industries. The fact of the matter is our infrastructure is not prepared for it. Our K through 12, K through 21 system is not preparing people and our young people for jobs of the future. Our policymakers are not, you see what they're paying attention to. They're not paying attention to these issues at the level and scale that they need to. And certainly our workforce preparation is subpar. And so with that, you know, there are things that we need to do. And unfortunately, we're at a time in the nation where our leaders who are actually in power right now are actually seeking to undermine the very kinds of programs and insurance systems that we need for our workers. And so I'm just here to tell you that while, you know, I'm not sounding an alarm about the technology because the technology is already here. We're using it. What I am saying is that we actually need to be prepared for it, and we need to be leaning on our leaders to make sure that they're doing right by American workers and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. We're going to next go to Spencer Overton, the president of the Joint Center, but we actually have a little video from your website. So would you like us to?
That's great.
We'll cue it up. Take a look. If technology works.
Yeah, it's just loading.
Thank you so much. Clap for Morgan Butler, who put that together from our team. Thank you, Morgan. Good job. Behind the camera. Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, thank you so much for your vision, thinking ahead. I know this is already your area and you're already an expert, but thank you for giving us this platform and this issue, this platform. Congressman Scott, you know we got to talk about you. I know everybody does have to. Thank you for, you know, being a great mentor. I went to Hampton for undergrad, so, you know, he is from Virginia in that area and occasionally represents Hampton. Sometimes the district includes it, sometimes it doesn't. Thank you so much for your leadership on workforce here. Also have to acknowledge another Hamptonian empire, my chair, who's from Hampton originally, Barbara Johnson, who's a great, outstanding employment lawyer. So Barbara, thanks so much for joining us, the chair of the Joint Center.
Stand up.
Yeah, please, please, please. Great employment attorney here. Yep. So, Joint Center, founded in 1970 to support black elected officials. We've worked closely with the CBC for a long time. Right now, you see we're focused on the future of work. We are releasing some new data today. Here's the data in a nutshell. There's about 700 jobs that the Labor Department tracks, right? About 700 jobs. 26% of black people who work, 26% of black workers are concentrated in just 20 jobs that are highly susceptible to automation. And those jobs are on this front page. So an automation risk of 97% in terms of cashiers, that suggests that 0.97 suggests 97% is what that means. This data, what we did is we ran, there's an Oxford study from 2 or 3 years ago that 3 or 4 years ago, 2013, that classifies the automation risk of particular jobs. And we compared that to the number of black folks who are in particular jobs in the country from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, this isn't just the black people. There are a lot more black folks who are subject to automation. These are just the 20 biggest jobs that will impact our community in terms of our economy. There are other jobs like telemarketers. There are only 21,000 black telemarketers in the country, right? But a third of telemarketers are black, over a third. And there's a 99% risk that automation will come into that area here, right? Flip side of the paper, basically jobs that have been deemed low risk for automation. So nurses, teachers, social workers, different types of jobs there. So happy to have an opportunity to release this information, but we look at the drivers, the cashiers, retail sales, laborers, cooks. These are jobs that automation, they're high risk for automation here. So now I want to just talk about a couple of important insights, I think, that we just need to be realists about, because it's not all doom and gloom, right? One, this changing nature of work as opposed to the wholesale elimination of work, right? So in other words, Mandel did a study, and he said since June of 2015, for example, yeah, we've lost 50,000 jobs, retail jobs, due to e-commerce, right? So we've lost 50,000 retail jobs. A lot of those are black folks. But we've added 160,000 jobs in terms of fulfillment centers and other e-commerce pieces, right? So my point is that this is about a shift in terms of the economy. Some people have said we're going to go to no one having a job. I think that's kind of up in the air. That's a big debate big debate, right? But the point is that, yeah, there are some jobs that we're losing. There's some other jobs that are expanding. Another big point, though, and I talked about this a little yesterday when we talked about smart cities, is this rare opportunity that we have to not be at the back of the bus, but at the forefront here, right? And my analogy is another Hampton analogy, right? Which is Hidden Figures, right? So remember Octavia Spencer here, a woman, she basically gets denied a promotion even though she's acting like a supervisor. Kind of white folks overlook her for promotion, right? But then you will remember that she recognizes that the IBM is coming and that they will be displaced from their jobs doing math for NASA, right? And so she goes out and she gets a Fortran book, and she learns Fortran, and she doesn't just learn Fortran for herself, Congresswoman, right? She learns, she teaches a team, black women, and then they go in, when the IBM comes in, they're all ready to take those jobs, right? And you remember at the end of the story, the white folks are coming to them to say, hey, can you help us out? She says, hey, yeah, sure, we'll help you out, right? And so the real question is, how can we do the same thing today? Can we use innovation and disruption to our advantage as the women did in Hidden Figures, as we saw Singapore has done in terms of their transformation? And so the question here is, what is our Fortran? What are the solutions? Well, one solution, we can't all just say, let's just become nurses who are not going to be automated, right? That's not the only solution here, right? And one good thing is that everyone is just starting to think about this, right? So it's not some scenario where we're just kind of behind. There are a lot of sessions I go to where there are very few people of color and they don't have like the clear answers. People just are starting to talk about this, right? So Maya has some great answers and solutions and suggestions in her paper. It's cited at the end right here, that last footnote, the actual paper there, if you didn't get it down. But some initial ideas, kind of this concept of lifelong learning and reducing the skills gap, right? So in many cities, there are employers who have needs and they're not able to meet those needs in the area, right? So how do we both reduce the skills gap, and because of innovation and things are always changing, how can we kind of continue to learn, right? So that's kind of one piece. I think this other piece is this entrepreneurship piece, right? So yeah, I'm all for, want to support folks who are hairdressers, not subject to automation, right? That's great. But entrepreneurs who have businesses that kind of can scale up here. So we talk about startups. So you think about a new technology like 3D printing, right, that is creating something. So maybe a local manufacturer doesn't want to go to China for a part because of the time delay, but wants it made locally, and because you buy a 3D printer, you can supply that to the person. Or maybe you're a bricklayer, right, and you've got artificial intelligence is allowed for kind of robotic bricklaying, and you get some access to capital, you buy one of those, and so as opposed to having to meet payroll of 20 or 25 people, you and 2 or 3 other friends can actually be a subcontractor to somebody else kind of laying bricks, a larger manufacturer. You can have that kind of business. Maybe your local industry is shipbuilding, and there needs to be some data analytics in terms of data about shipbuilding so that folks can be more efficient with the scrap metal or something, that kind of thing, right? So maybe you can get into that space in terms of data. And then also there is this kind of potential for good that we have to acknowledge in terms of all these technologies, in terms of lowering costs, making things more accessible, and those answers aren't always going to come from Silicon Valley, right? They're going to come from people who are on the front lines and kind of understand the applications here. So the entrepreneurship thing is big. I think a final piece is that a lot of you all are connected in terms of politics. And I think elected officials and corporate executives have a real responsibility to recognize that, you know, we're not fungible as people, just kind of collateral folks who can be discarded. There's a real responsibility that folks have in terms of planning for a transition, right? How do we kind of reskill people? How do we give people some space to get some different skills? How do we focus on apprenticeships and other real tools for upskilling folks? And we're not just kind of cold and calculating and say, hey, it's just the bottom line piece here. So kind of as I wrap this part of it up, I think the simple thing is this technology, you know, there are a lot of improvements that are going to happen in society. And the question, honestly, is how do we ensure that African Americans do not disproportionately bear the costs of this technology, right? How do we ensure that racial disparities just don't increase because of these new technologies? And indeed, I would want us to be even more optimistic, right, and say, how do we use these new opportunities to eliminate some of the vestiges of the past and actually kind of leapfrog forward? So as opposed to folks saying, how can we fix these broken black folks and get them up to what, like, we're focusing on our human potential, right? We're focusing on leapfrogging and going as far as we can go, as opposed to kind of a deficit mentality of just how do we get folks up to the average standard. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Big hand. Big hand. Okay. So you guys, just so you know, like that was hot off the press, fresh data. And I'm so impressed and so excited. And also, I have one of my colleagues here, one of my good friends, a freshman, one of our class presidents, Val Demings from the great state of Florida, Congresswoman. The chief is in the house, and her husband, Jerry, as well. Thank you so much for joining us. What's wonderful about this panel, and I see some of you can find a seat, is that I'm looking out at a diversity of people in this audience. Different ages, different backgrounds, coming from different walks of life. And you recognize that what is so great about this conference is it is about the substance. And so to hear you share this data and come at it from, like we said in the beginning, this is where we are today, but here's the potential for where we can go in the future. We greatly appreciate it. So thank you for being a part of the panel. We're going to turn it next to, it's Lieutenant Colonel, but do I call you Colonel?
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
Okay.
You can call me whatever you want.
Colonel Oaklander, I want to turn it to you from Starbucks. I saw this gentleman on a panel, and he was talking about our youth. And that always gets my heart, because I am very optimistic, concerned, a kid at heart, a millennial at heart. And I was just so impressed by the work that he's doing and the work that Starbucks is doing with young people, and particularly opportunity. And so I asked him to join the panel, and as I was doing some research on him, I Googled and actually saw a video of Will Smith introducing you, a very nice video. So if you Google, you'll see a very nice video. And I just wanted him to share so that we can turn the tables a little bit to actual what's on the ground, dealing with people who are young, and what are they going through, and what kind of programs do you have? So I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Oaklander. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Blunt Rochester, distinguished leaders of the Congressional Black Caucus, fellow panelists and guests. As she said, I'm David Oaklander, the director of the Opportunity Youth Initiative for the Starbucks Coffee Company. It is an honor to talk with you about the Starbucks commitment to hiring young adults 16 to 24 who are out of school and disconnected from today's economy. I'm humbled to lead this initiative, but my path here has been, as was indicated, a bit circuitous. I previously served 23 years in the Army as an infantry officer, mostly with the 82nd Airborne Division, and deployed multiple times between Iraq and Afghanistan. After retiring in 2012 from here at the Pentagon, I began a new career in education, mostly teaching on the west side of Chicago, and subsequently becoming the principal of Detroit Central High School. Go Trailblazers. In Chicago and Detroit, as in the military, I saw the unmatched resilience and character of our American youth. But I also saw the enormous daily obstacles the youth faced, obstacles that would have made me feel hopeless as a young man. I don't know that I could overcome some of the challenges that I have observed. Today, this hopelessness threatens our economy and our democracy, and often leads to decisions illustrating that our youth across the nation are just trying to survive. When you just want to survive, you cannot learn, grow, or become the person you were meant to be for your family or your nation. An example I experienced firsthand that really impacted me illustrates this. I attended my first Opportunity Youth Hiring Fair in Dallas about 4 months ago, as I was new to the Starbucks team. The day before the fair, outside of the convention center where we were holding this event, my team attended the annual Dallas Police Memorial. It was a somber event, especially given that 4 police officers were killed by a man who had lost hope, and that hopelessness turned to anger, and that anger turned to violence. Shockingly, what I learned was that this man had visited the Dallas Workforce Development Office in Dallas 4 times prior to the event, but had still fallen through the cracks. The next day, 2,000 young people from Dallas came to the convention center seeking opportunity and hope, and almost half of them left with a job offer in hand. The irony of that, though, should not be lost on anyone. In response to this hopelessness and the injustice reflected in places across America like Dallas, Ferguson, Missouri, Baltimore, and others, Starbucks helped launch the 100,000 Opportunities Initiative in 2015. This is the nation's largest coalition of employers focused on creating employment opportunities for young adults. To date, Starbucks has hired over 40,000 Opportunity youth. Our new partners are standouts in their stores, where their retention and excellent service have been proven, and they have amazing enthusiasm to serve their community. That only comes when you have an opportunity to make a difference. But our commitment to Opportunity Youth doesn't end with the job offer, because their barriers don't go away when we hire them. Oftentimes, this is the first job for our new partners. So we help them build power skills like discipline and time management and teamwork. Starbucks also offers health insurance and a 4-year college degree in 70 fields of study, tuition-free. At Arizona State University, for all of our partners working only 20 hours or more, so part-time. Currently, 20% of those enrolled, of the 7,600 participants enrolled, they are studying in the STEM fields. However, as an educator who brought a technology innovation incubator into my high school in Detroit, I learned that while we must radically reform how and what we teach students, the basics are still essential. We will never get a young person to access technology, automation, and artificial intelligence if they cannot persist in school and learn to read. A 5th grade reading level is essential even for entry-level positions. Skilled jobs like what we're talking about have even higher demands. This is why we expect our Pathways to Success program to be groundbreaking. It meets our partners where they are, and the intent is to help them rebuild academic foundations before they seek access to college programming. What we had found was that 1 in 5, as they applied to our college achievement program, were not ready for college. We are also establishing a mentoring and leadership program to expand the networks and opportunities for our youth, but also to help reduce the stigma around illiteracy and mental health needs related to personal trauma. At the end of the day, Starbucks is stronger because of the tremendous young adults that we're hiring. We also recognize that we are a beginning for our partners, and their dreams often lie beyond the green apron, and that's just fine. That's why we don't have any strings attached to our college achievement program. We want the youth to leverage Starbucks as a bridge to their future success in science, technology, entrepreneurship, or whatever field they want to succeed in. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, this last Wednesday, just a couple of days ago, we held our 6th hiring event here in Washington, D.C., with over 35 employers and over 40 service organizations available to the youth to help them get reconnected. Leading into the day, we had 6,800 youth registered for the event. By the end of the day, over 1,000 were extended an employment offer. 400 alone by Starbucks. While these are incredible and exciting, record-breaking statistics from the fair, we acknowledge that the hardest work began on day 2, on Thursday, when the young men and women who we hired needed to be on-ramped, or if they didn't get a job, they needed to be connected for more training and development so that they could become job ready. And we are absolutely committed to this ongoing work. We will remain committed to that. In the end of the day, we as a coalition, the 100,000 Opportunities Initiative Coalition, are committed to hiring 1 million opportunity youth, 1 million opportunity youth by the year 2021, and we will help begin and create multi-generational change across America. Thank you for hosting this.
Thank you, Colonel. Now you understand why I invited him to be on the panel. To me, there is a strong connection between youth, education, having that opportunity, and as you said, that might be the first job that leads to something else. I started at McDonald's. And look at me now. So I want to thank you for that, and we're going to segue. One of the things also that I think is important is to highlight the fact that regardless of what the jobs of the future are, as you said, there are certain basics that people will still need. Some of the things that we hear about are team building skills, creativity. These are things that not necessarily will an autonomous car be able to do. But those kinds of things, the soft skills, are also important, and just having that first opportunity. And then also, just to echo what Spencer said, the whole focus on entrepreneurs and small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone of our country, and so instead of thinking of this as we're afraid, we can think of it as what are the opportunities that come as a result of climate change? Are there things that we could be doing? But it requires our young people to be well educated, and for all of us with lifelong learning, back to what Maya said as we transition. And so last but not least, we are going to hear from this speaker I heard at a Future of Work seminar, which was incredible. I'm on a caucus called the New Dems Caucus, and it's a real focus on business, and so I really wanted to have you kind of round it up and wrap it up as you talk about the Future of Work initiative that you're doing at the Aspen Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, Alistair Fitzpaine.
Can this mic work? Thanks, Congresswoman.
Does the mic work?
I'll see if I can speak right into it. Thanks, Congresswoman. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's an honor to be here, also with the distinguished panelists. I'll just be brief and echo a lot of what has been said already in terms of the challenges and opportunities of the future of work, which is the mission of our project at the Aspen Institute, which is to kind of look at these and try to develop a policy agenda so that we can help companies, the private sector, public sector, at the federal, state, and local level begin to address the challenges that we face. And when just a couple anecdotes really on the challenges. What kind of keeps me up at night is there's a researcher at MIT's the business school. He probably spends more time talking to companies, entrepreneurs who are spending all of their time investing in automation, investing in artificial intelligence. And the conclusion that he drew from that is, if you look kind of where we are right now, if you are an average worker, the skills that you have, really, you are in the worst possible position that you could be as a worker in our economy right now based on just having average skills. So it highlights because computers, robotics, AI, what they are doing in terms of acquiring data is trying to simulate the skills that average workers have. Routine jobs that don't involve cognitive skills are the jobs that robots and automation will do. So again, if you are an average worker with basic skills, you need to figure out how you can upgrade your skills so that a robot cannot do your job. The second kind of just discussion that I heard that keeps me up at night is at a event that Aspen hosted, a guy named Astro Teller. He's the head of Google's R&D efforts out in California. So he is working on autonomous vehicles, he's working on drone technology. He was asked, what do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years? He said his answer to that question was, I think the amount of change that's going to come in the next 10 years will be equal to the amount of change we've experienced in the last 30. And this gets to some of the points that were made earlier. The pace of change based on what AI can do and based on where automation is heading could effectively, in the next 10 years, think back to what the world looked like 30 years ago, and imagine that amount of change over the next 10 years. Now, he could be wrong, but he could be right. And I think frames the challenge, and I think gets to Spencer's point about all the various types of jobs that could potentially change pretty dramatically. It may not happen this year or next year, but there is billions of dollars that are being invested around the world, not just the United States, China, India, in Europe, to automate jobs and to use AI to do things that humans can do at lower cost. So it just frames the challenge that I think invites why it's encouraging me to see so many people here and encouraging to see the Congresswoman and everybody up on this panel focused on how we deal with it from a policy perspective. Now the opportunities, and I just echo what the Congresswoman just said. So the CEO of Etsy. Etsy is an on-demand platform that allows people who make arts and crafts to effectively sell them all over the world. He said, hey, automation is changing everything in our society. The one thing it cannot do is be creative. So it highlights the importance of trying to figure out ways to encourage people's creative skills and monetize them. The second point is a really interesting article that Tom Friedman wrote about Airbnb. Airbnb obviously has done well as a home sharing company, but they've now moved into a completely different line of business, which is trying to encourage people to use their skills and passions to provide services to people. So giving people experiences, if you're an expert in Greek history, if you're an expert in jazz music, how do you give a tour of the city of Detroit, right, for people who are coming to Detroit, in addition to sharing your home? Right? How do you effectively use the skills, unique background that you have to effectively provide another source of income that, again, you've never really been able to do through any of these other platforms, but Airbnb is now giving you that opportunity. So there are many different opportunities, but it's worth remembering that the technology that's being developed is also creating some new and different opportunities for people to use their individual skills to earn income in ways that you could not 5 years ago. So from a policy perspective, and I think I'll just try to go quickly through it. One of the big challenge to me is to reimagine both kind of the education system and the training system, because both are failing in their ability to kind of meet people where they need to be in the workforce. So 2/3 of jobs today require a post-secondary degree. We're here in Washington, D.C., where 60% of kids graduate from high school. So we're just dramatically failing in terms of providing kids the opportunity to graduate, just simply to graduate from high school and enter the workforce and receive most of the jobs that are available today. I think you can start at the beginning of the education process and go all the way through with the reforms that are necessary. You take a look at early education. The United States of America, relative to all of the other kind of major industrialized countries, is ranked 28th out of 38 in terms of percentage of kids who have access to 4-year-olds who have access to early education. So there's work to be done there. We just talked about high school graduation rates here in DC. You could take a look at even kids who are graduating from high school across the country only 40% are college and career ready. So major work to be done in terms of improving the quality of education, even for people that are graduating. Community college enrollment is declining. How do you figure out ways to improve the access for people to go to community college, again, to acquire the skills necessary in a world where you're going to have now 15 different jobs if you graduate from high school today, minimum. That's kind of the estimate. How do you help people transition from job to job and career to career? And even on community colleges, the percentage of kids who are going to community college and completing it is abysmally low. So trying to figure out ways to help people stay and complete community college is another public policy imperative. Outside of education, worker training is a huge area of, and this is where Congresswoman has been a leader already, is looking at these questions of our worker training system. We now spend 0.1% of our GDP on worker training. That is third lowest among industrialized countries. So only Mexico and Chile spend less than the United States on worker training. That amount that we're spending as a country on worker training has been cut in half over the last 30 years. And as you can tell from the most recent Trump budget, the direction is going south as opposed to north. In the private sector, there's shining examples like Starbucks and Walmart, some big companies that are making incredible commitments to individuals and training their workers in ways that have not happened in the past. But the trend over the last 20 years has been private sector investment in worker training has dropped by 1/3. So you have both public sector and private sector disinvestment in worker training at a moment where skills are at a premium. Both the public sector and the private sector should be increasing the amount that they're investing in skills for their workers, partly because the value of skills has gone up and the time on which your skills are current is going down. Like if you learn, the World Economic Forum estimated by 2020, like 2/3 of the skills that are being used will become outdated. Now, that is a scary prospect for a lot of workers in our economy. The only other, outside of the education and training, I do think these programs that help people who are displaced, so if you lose your job, you can receive unemployment insurance. In many states, that is 10, 12, 15 weeks of a small paycheck. It doesn't do anything in terms of education, training, or any assistance in terms of identifying high growth areas where you could actually get a job. So reimagining unemployment insurance. There's another program called Trade Adjustment Assistance, which helps people who've been displaced by trade. It does nothing for people who have lost their job due to automation. So it makes no, what's particularly absurd about it is if you look at manufacturing over the last 30 years, manufacturing has dropped by 1/3 in terms of total employment. Most of those job losses have taken place because of automation, not because of trade. So reimagining a trade adjustment assistance program where at a minimum you're expanding the ability to qualify based on the fact that you've lost your job due to automation seems like a worthwhile policy enterprise. So making work pay, I'll just say two seconds on that. 50% of this country now works for less than $17 an hour. So figuring out ways to increase the minimum wage, increase your income tax credit so you can make work pay is another important component, I think, of trying to help people adapt to what the future of work is going to look like. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for taking the time.
So much. We're going to we have about 10 minutes or so for questions. At the end, we're also going to do the word cloud. So we'll put that back up on the screen. We need you to participate in the word cloud because we want to see what your thoughts are. Ian, you got the mic. And I also had someone from Microsoft that was here. Oh, that's right. Did you want to say a word about Microsoft, what you're doing? 1 second.
1 second.
Oh, no, not for you, but I'm saying for everybody else.
One, I just want to say I have
Stand up and introduce yourself.
Stephanie Peters, I'm the Director of Federal Government Affairs for Microsoft. I have been a personal fan of the Congresswoman. She doesn't even know. I sit on the CBC PAC board and they bring candidates. And when they brought her as a candidate, I was so wild that I followed her, I pushed support to her, I went to her district on election day. Yes. So that data analytics, I'm using it. But no, because I started my legal career at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, so I know how important jobs are. And so when she was coming to Congress with her background, personally for me it was important, and obviously it's important for Microsoft. I will say I agree with all the panelists. Microsoft is trying to, the impact of automation and our software and data analytics and AI, we are trying to partner and be real global community partners and support programs. I definitely want to talk to our state of Washington colleague from Starbucks to see how we can partner, and I want to thank everyone else for all your comments. The last thing I want to say is one of the most important things is the entrepreneurship. African Americans have had small businesses. My parents had 2 or 3. Microsoft, biggest customers, the US government, but most departments we don't sell directly. It's through our small and medium-sized businesses that contract with the US government. Our sales team does not go into the Pentagon to sell. So understanding if we can empower our youth to get the jobs, to be creative, to start their own app, to start their own business online, that's really where it's at, because all of our large businesses are partnering, with them and getting the skills to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Now everybody with the questions, ask a question, because we have a very limited amount of time, so make it a question, not a speech. Okay.
I am a great believer in that. So you'll get a question with just a little bit, won't be much. I'm a great believer that it's very difficult for most people to have forward thinking, to engage in forward thinking. So Spencer Overton here? Yeah. All right, so you provided this data that tells everybody the likelihood of jobs going away, right? The ones that are going to stay, the ones that might go away. You got any data on the ones over the last 20 years that have gone away, so it can kind of get in people's mind to know that this is real stuff? Because it's hard to make people really believe that maybe, well, cashier ought to be easy to know because there are no tellers now. A cook is going to go away. You know what I mean? Like, people believe that somebody's got to cook.
Right. I think that's a good question. We didn't do that study. I'll just quickly say that the Michael Mandel study that I just referenced, where he said retail's lost 50,000 jobs, but that, e-commerce has picked up some jobs. So kind of as an example of some job loss. But I'll definitely take that as feedback in terms of the future and sending a message to people. So thank you.
And
Madam Mayor.
Just a quick, before you came in, one of the things that I was talking about is just how we don't even notice that some of these jobs have gone, because people don't pump our gas anymore. We don't go to tellers anymore. We've got all kinds of things that are happening around us. And even for cooks, there are automated processing of food that cooks food. Even for crops, I'm on the agriculture committee, I'm on education and workforce and agriculture. Even for picking tiny berries and things, there is now automation that does that work. So you're right, that's one of the purposes for this panel, is to say, this is happening right around us. Ian's got the word.
I'm sorry for that. My name is Greg. I just moved here from Silicon Valley. One of my jobs is I'm a venture capitalist. JetBlue is one of the companies I funded. I wanted to invite you all to check out one of my YouTube pages called Tesla Fan Insight. And the reason I want you to look at it is we're about to lose 5 million jobs in the auto industry right now because of Tesla. A Tesla engine has 17 parts, and the regular engine in your car right now has 2,000 parts. So you can see the difference. All those parts are made by people, and their jobs are about to disappear. The second thing I wanted to note is there's a concept called you need to skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. Yes. And so I'd like to invite all of you to check out the resources that Stanford provides free of charge to anybody interested in seeing the future. If you type Stanford and proactive skincare into your Google browser, it'll bring you to a place at Stanford called the e-corner. Every 10 of those videos that you watch and listen to is worth $1 million.
Thank you.
So I want to encourage you guys to check that out as a way to understand what's next in technology and what the Valley is going to be doing over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Let's try anybody from Delaware for the, you know, we have a lot, yeah, go to the gentleman, yeah, let's all have the Delawarean first.
My name is Richard Smith. I'm a longshoreman, been one for 4 years. We hire a lot of young guys. We get guys, I'm a supervisor right now, and I deal with about 40 people, from 2 to 40, 60 people a day, different personalities and stuff. One concept is my youngest worker right now is 22 years old, and he's from Jamaica. And he went to Dixon High School, and he's got half Jamaican, half American. But my concept is, as you learn these guys, because these guys start off for $14 an hour, and they can go up to $39 an hour if they make the union. That's without education, without any skills, anything else. My concept is that I talk to young folks every day, and I can gear them to the waterfront. And I know that if I gear them to be a truck driver, that's automation, it's gone. Out in the West right now, Budweiser has got trucks running up and down the mountains with no drivers. Baltimore Port have yard hustlers with no drivers. So that's job loss. How do Starbucks and you three, how do you come to Delaware and help us to talk to the young guys and give hope to them when they think there is no hope?
Starbucks was mentioned first.
Yeah. So you ask a very compelling question, sir. So actually, we have representatives around the country that ensure that we have a local understanding. And at our fair here in DC, one of the leaders of that was Mr. Philip Laws, who is our regional director, who owns Washington, D.C., all of our operations and beyond. He and his wife are here. And what I will tell you, sir, is that Starbucks has a very organic and driven passion to do this work. And we really believe in it. However, we are only one company. That's why we have reached out to a coalition to do this work. We are only going to get to 1 million youth of the 4.9 million that are disconnected in our country through this coalition. So it's got to be a lot of other companies that step up and do this and understand that it is investing in our future. So will we come to Delaware? I think we're already there. Will we ask other companies to step up and really focus on opportunity? Yes, and I know that Microsoft is one of our coalition members, but I think we all need to think about other ways that we can serve and employ young people in these circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Can I just quickly, I definitely want to just quickly, I really think it's incumbent upon the folks who are in this room, you know, elected officials, some corporate folks, other people, to take the lead to kind of make it easy for this young person, as opposed to assuming he's going to read some report and some data that we put out, etc. Creating an environment where there is a good paying job and there are incentives and he has a way that's feasible and fits from an economic standpoint to go to a technical school or to do something, right? It's really upon us, it's not easy to kind of design the system that if he's willing to kind of get in there and try, we got a path for him. So I just think that we really need to step up to the plate about that. It's a systems piece, right? I think there's some places like Germany, we talked about Singapore, some other places that really have this down, and certainly, the United States should, but I'll tell you, the United States is not. You know, there are places in Delaware and places in Newark and Detroit in Memphis and Atlanta, that the Joint Center is committed to ensuring take those steps toward the future. There may be some folks who believe that we need to, you know, focus on coal or go back to some old jobs. Our communities need to focus on the future.
And if I had one additional thought. One of the things that we are thinking very closely and deeply about is what are the barriers that are keeping young people from accessing, maybe not directly into some of these advanced jobs, but as a pathway, finding bridges. So we look at the biggest barriers that we hear about from youth all the time are housing and transportation insecurity. Transportation. Yeah. Now, I will also say that I think there are a lot of unspoken issues that young people deal with. Literacy is one of them. A lot of people will walk away from a job and they will never say, I'm walking away because I can't read the instructions, because there's a lot of shame associated with this. That's why we're really focused on mentoring, because a mentor was the one who convinced me, hey, Oaklander, you need to talk to somebody because of all the things that you dealt with in Afghanistan and Iraq, and raising my hand to say I need help is a sign of power. And I think that our youth really need to start to understand that, and they need all of us to step up to be those mentors who will help guide them through that.
So, guys, last question. Sorry, last question. This lady in the back, and then we're going to do the word thing, and then these speakers are going to be available to chat with you guys, but we're trying to be respectful of your time. So, Ian, last question back there.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to ask if where can I find the data that you had recited earlier? But also, my name is Darlene McDonald, and I'm running for Congress in Utah 4th, but I have a technology background, so I see all these changes that are happening in technology. I want to know if you think, what is the impact that you think all this automation is going to have on the future of capitalism? And also, do you think we're going to end up in a society where, similar to Alaska, where everybody has to be given an income because there's no more income because the jobs have been taken by automation?
Sure, I'll go quickly. I mean, I think we're at a fork in the road. I think that is the right question to ask. I think if we make the right policy choices, if the public sector and the private sector, to the points that were made here during the panel, make the right decisions in terms of investments in education, training, making work pay, promoting entrepreneurship, I think we have a chance to be able to use automation and just kind of capture the opportunities of it as opposed to being overtaken by the challenges of it. And I'm happy, I'll give you a card and we can.
I just want to follow up on that. That question that you just asked has been one of the things that spurred this conversation today. I was sitting on a panel about the future of work, and half the people were afraid, doom and gloom, and the other half were talking about all the potential and the opportunities. We are at a crossroads right now. As you mentioned, in some scenarios, it could be that there is a wage that people receive and then are able to be creative and use technology to live their lives. There's also the issue of benefits. We are used to a society where you have your health benefits. Your job is not just a job. It usually entailed your retirement, your benefit. Those things have changed. They're changing right before us. And so the whole notion of making sure that we even have health care and don't have to worry about it if you change a job is very important right now, and we are at a pivotal place. I love the word reimagine. That was the word that was used. And so what I encourage you to do is reimagine, not just the education system, not just our jobs, but yourself. Reimagine, where are you right now? Where do you need to be? What can you be doing to help prepare somebody around you, to help prepare yourself? This job for me was a reimagining. Reimagine. When I look at this, I don't look at it as glass half empty, glass half full. I look at it as, I'm glad I got a glass. We need to take the information be aware, spread the word. I am so thankful to see. I dreamed that there would be 5 people maybe in this room. I'm just saying, if P. Diddy is not in this session, y'all are pretty good though. But to see you here means that we can spread the word that this is not just coming, it's here now. And how do we prepare? All of us, not just our kids, all of us. So I want you now, in the last remaining seconds, we're gonna put up the code again, pull out your phones, and if you could just text to...
And if you've already joined, you're still in the poll. But for those who joined us, the number you're going to text to is 22333 in the 2 section. That's where you're sending it to.
So if you already joined and you've already done it, put your word in and send it now, right?
Correct. So for those who joined us late, text Lisa Blunt 339 to, you're going to text that to 22333, and then you can text your answer.
So got it? First you put in 22333, and then in the message box, you would text REPLISA BLUNT 339, and then put the one word that you think of when you think of the future of work and what impact it will have on communities of color. And here it goes. And what you will notice is the bigger the word, more people have put that in. If it's small, it might be 1 person. If it's larger, it might be 3 people. And we did this in the beginning for those of you who just joined us. And again, we just thank you so much for all of the work that all of you are doing in respective areas. AARP is in the house, the Delaware Black Caucus is in the house. We've got folks from lobbyists and friends and family, and my mother and father and my sister. Mom and Dad, Ted Blunt and Alice Blunt, please stand up. And again, thank you to our staff. Thank you for reimagining. Thank you for being hopeful. I'm excited. I hope you're excited too. Thank you.